Hey guys, Jammer Supercoach here. Today in this video I'm going to be doing my pod video. So I'm going to be talking about which pods are my favourites for the 2024 seasons and I think will do the best from premiums, mid-prices and rookies. We'll also be doing a team update near the end of the video. Quite a bit has changed. I won't go too much into depth of it. I'll just do a quick little review, show you guys what I've done. So yeah, let's get straight into the pod talk. So starting off with the first pod on the list, if this filter thing will work, has been working all day. Don't know why it's like this, but yeah, it just takes forever. Here it is. Load. Just does not want to load. I do not know why it does this, but alright, here we are. So the first pod on the list, as you can see, is Karl Amon. So the reason why I like Karl Amon is because I've always loved him as a player. I thought he's had an amazing kick, and I've just always rated him as a very underrated player. But like his whole career, he's been playing that sort of wing role. But I've never really seen that. Like he's played there good, but I've never really seen it at his. I've never really seen it as his home or just his best spot for football. After seeing what he did last year at halfback, I think that's where his home is in football. If he gets a decent role at halfback this year, I think he can average 105 plus. I have really high hopes for Karl Amon. He's only 2% owned, and at 483, I think that's super value. I think he'll go up to 550 at the minimum. And yeah, because look, as we could see here, the games he played in defense were phenomenal. So he got a 96, 113, 103, 133, 119, and 76. The 76 is just an off game, so whatever about that. But I mean, all these other scores are basically premium level. So that's great from Karl Amon. I think he's my favourite pod option for this year. Well, actually, this is not a particular order, but he's definitely one of my favourites. Karl Amon, I love him. And next up, we've got Matty Rowell. Now, this might be a bit of a shot in the dark. I don't know if it is or not, but Matt Rowell, I've always loved the way he's played. I mean, last season he averaged 102 in his first full season, really. And I think with a full season under his belt, he can really go bang next year and consolidate himself as one of the best midfielders in the league. I've always loved Matt Rowell as soon as he came into the league. I mean, if we go back to those first 4 or 5 games of his career before he got injured, it was getting 3 votes in every single game. And I feel like with a season now under his belt, he can have a full preseason, have a full run at it, and get to his very best form, Matt Rowell. I think he can average 110 plus. I think he's a very, very underrated pick. He's definitely. I can't see how much he's owned for some reason. I can't see how much anyone is owned for some reason. But Matt Rowell's definitely under 5% owned, I think. And I think if you get him, even just as a placeholder for Walsh, it'll pay off. It'll definitely pay off because I have high hopes for Matt Rowell. I think he can average 110 plus this year. Probably not one I'm considering in my team. I'm heavily considering him, but I'm probably just going to keep Walsh through his bye, so there's no point of getting Rowell unless he just goes bananas, which he could do. And next up on the list, I don't know if he's really a pod, but I'll include him on this list. And it's Andrew Brayshaw. So Andrew Brayshaw, for me, has always been Freya's number 1 midfielder. I know how good Sarong is. Actually, Sarong's probably the number 1 mid at the moment, but at his best, at both of them at their best, I think Brayshaw makes more impact. So yeah, I love Andy Brayshaw. He the reason why he's actually very underpriced at 608k because at the start of the season here, not only was he carrying a knee injury, but he was also getting tagged quite a lot. So these games here where he went sub ton, if it wasn't for the injury and the tag, this guy could have gone 111, 110 plus for the season. And I feel like now, after Sarong's amazing season last year, the tagging will be directed onto him, and Brayshaw will be that loose man in the midfield. So I reckon Andrew Brayshaw this year is in for an absolute stonker of a year. I think he could go 110 plus for sure. And without being tagged, I think he can do some really nice things as a pod. And the fact that he's like, I think 9% owned, that's pretty crazy. I think Brayshaw is pretty much a must-have in my team. So for me, you can't go past Andy Brayshaw. He's going to be a good pod, and I'm sure it'll pay off to have him. He's in my team. Is he? Oh, I don't think he is. Maybe he's not. But I will get him in my team just because I love him. And he's a great pod. So next up on this list we have Tom Lib. Yeah, Liberatore. So Tom Liberatore last year averaged 116. Do I think he's going to hold that up this year and average 116 plus again? No, I don't think he will. But he's also getting old. That's another factor. I definitely don't think he'll have as good as a season as last year. But the Dogs have a pretty easy fixture coming up this year. So they play North twice. They play Geelong twice, who I don't think will be very good this year. They play West Coast in round 3. They play... Who else do they play twice? I think that's pretty much it. Let's see who else they've got. Freo. They play Freo twice, who no one really expects is going to be doing that good. So maybe they'll produce some big scores there. Yeah, I just really like their matchups. And any Bulldogs player in that in that fixture, I think you can really heavily consider getting. Maybe not Bont because of his price tag, because I know he'll 100% come down. But I mean, if you were desperate, you can. And yeah, Libba with a really easy fixture, I think is a 110 plus lock. I don't think he'll average that 116, but at the percent of pick teams he's at, I think it was like 4%. If that's the case, I think he's a must. He's also at a 20 as his lowest score here. We got to remember that too. This could have been like a 118 average for Libba. I think next year he can average around the 115 mark. Just because of the easy fixture, I think Liberatore is a good pod pick, but I'm considering him, but I'm not 100% convinced on him just yet. Like him as a pod though. And next up on the list, we've got a young man who I'm not sure how he isn't owned more after the season he had last year. This guy was literally the most consistent player of all of 2023, and that man is Connor Rozee. This guy did not drop a game. He had 175 here, but that's towards the end of the year. I'm sure he was tired, nagged by injuries and all that. But look at that. I mean, he was just such a consistent player. He either went 80 or above. Like, apart from the 75, he's just phenomenal. It's amazing. And with the captaincy on him, look, this is one that could go either way. I think that's the reason why he's owned so smallly. I think it's like 7%. But with the captaincy, it's either he falls and does really bad, like a Mills, or he rises and does amazing, like a Jordan Dawson. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen there, but I think he still should hold up another good year. I think it'll be around the same, if not better. But yeah, with someone with his consistency, the fact that he's 7% owned is concerning. You can really hurt teams by having him in your team. I'm heavily considering him. Let's see the fixture pool have two. Did they play West Coast twice? No, I only played West Coast once, but it's in round one, so definitely think about starting him, especially with the good buy. He's actually a very good pick. I might actually consider starting him. Plays West Coast in round one and has the good buy. I've got to see how his preseason and round zero goes. But yeah, I'm heavily considering him. Next up on the list, we have got Josh Dunkley. So, Dunks. If I could spell it right, there it is. Josh Dunkley. Definitely not a starting pick, that's for sure, just because of his bad buy. But I think after his buy, he could be a very good pickup. He scored 115.2 in his first year at the Lions, and I think that's just going to be an upwards trend. I think Dunkley's like, how old is Dunkley? We can search up. How old is Josh Dunkley? It says nothing about 27 years. So yeah, he's well and truly still in his prime right now, Josh Dunkley. He could even go bigger next year. I see him having a really big year. The role he has in that Brisbane midfield, just the inside mid, he's a great tackler. He gets lots of handballs, lots of kicks too, good efficiency. There's not much to hate about this guy. He only had a couple of poor games towards the end of last season, but I'm sure that he was carrying an injury there. But yeah, overall, Josh Dunkley, a great pod pick. He's like 4% owned too, so he's one I'm heavily considering too. Not to start, but I will definitely get him later on in the season, most likely. So, next up on the list, we've got someone that was actually probably one of the best defenders last season, and it's Luke Ryan. Luke Ryan is a very good pod. I'm very considering him. I was scared to put him in my team just because of like how people react, but boy, I don't know. He got the good buy. He got the most total points as a defender last season. He's got the roof, 168 and 171 both in the same season. His floor is a half decent 80, which isn't bad. But like, I just don't see what's wrong with this guy. I don't care how he's more highly owned. Like, I'm heavily considering him, Luke Ryan. I think he could have an even better year. Yeah, and with Hayden Young moving out of the back line, Luke Ryan will be taking every single kick out. So that is absolutely amazing. I think this guy can go absolute bang next season. I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes the number one defender. Sounds crazy, but I wouldn't be surprised. The only thing I am worried about though is Freo have these spurts of games where, like, they're a weird team. They change up their game style constantly, and it just pisses me off. Like, one game they're using him, he gets a 171 because they're using him all the time in that back line, just kick to kick back there. And then later on, they just do not use him at all, and he gets on a streak of like 80s and 90s, which aren't bad, but he will lose cash if that's the case. That's the only thing I worry about. Is Freo's game plan is a bit weird sometimes, and they like to change it up a little bit. But yeah, apart from that, I think he's a unbelievable pick, unbelievable underrated pick. I might get him in my team. I'm really considering him. So yeah, Luke Ryan. Next up on the list, we've got another defender here who is probably pretty underpriced after what he did last year. So Jack Sinclair. If we look at what he averaged in 2022, averaged 113, and 2023 106. So I'm not quite sure what went wrong at the start of the season. Like, it was just not as consistent as last year and getting some pretty bad scores, as you could see, 60s and 70s. But apart from that, I really rated Sinclair. Like, he's still moderately young. He has plenty of years ahead of him. And I just think maybe there was an injury or something there he was carrying throughout the year to get these 60s and 70s. But I just think this year, with full preseason, I haven't heard anything about it, which isn't necessarily a good sign, isn't necessarily a bad sign. But hopefully, if you like, I wouldn't mind the pick because he's 596k. We've seen that he can have a starting price of 626k. What happened in 2022, and yeah, I think he's undervalued, underpriced. I think you could definitely pick him up. I think he'll do a lot better than last year. I think he'll go 110 plus, possibly. Actually, no, not 110 plus. 105 plus definitely. I think he'll do better than 106, maybe like 108 or 109. But yeah, I think he's definitely underpriced. Maybe he was carrying an injury here for these 60s and 70s. But yeah, you can definitely consider Jack Sinclair. I like the pick at his price. So next up on the list, we have another Sun here, and it's, what's it going there? Noah Anderson. Noah Anderson did surprisingly well in the Brownlow last year. He was actually leading, I think, at one stage, like halfway through the season, and I thought he was going to stand a chance, to be honest, Noah Anderson. And look, it was his first season as a full mid, so he has a lot more to learn still. And I mean, I just really liked the way he played in some games. Like, look, a 189 and a 144, 2 weeks separated from each other. It was overall a really consistent score. I only had a couple 70s here and there. Yeah, couple 70s here and there as his lowest scores. But apart from that, I really rate Noah Anderson as a pick. He's young. I feel like he really loves the club Gold Coast. He's consolidated himself there as a really passionate and good midfielder. And I think under Dimmer he could flourish. I don't think he's obviously not one to start because of his price, because of his buy, of course, in Gold Coast. But after his buy or for a placeholder for Walsh, it might not be a bad pick. But we'll see how he goes later on the season. Definitely don't expect it to do too amazing, but I think he could get up to a 108 average, let's say, near the 110 mark. Next up on the list, we've gone for a little bit of a wacky one here, and it's Patrick Cripps. Now, I know there's especially Carlton supporters saying this every year that, oh, he's going to win the Brownlow, he's going to do this, he's going to do that, but look, I don't expect him to do amazing this year. I'm going to be honest. I don't expect him to go out there and contend for the Brownlow. But I think the thing about Cripps, he's always had this trend where, look, you look at 2019, one of his best years, average 117. Year after, 2020, where is it there? Had a bit of a stinker of a year, averaged 97.5. And then you go to 2021, 83. So he's had a couple of bad seasons now. And you go to 2022 and he goes bang and wins the Brownlow in that year. So I feel like Cripps, coming off of 1 or 2 bad years, like a year afterwards, I feel like he really explodes. I think you can't start him obviously just because of his buy and stuff, but later in the season you'll see how he goes. And I've heard great things about him in preseason, so I wouldn't be surprised if Patrick Cripps slowly moved back up the ranks of some of the great midfielders in the comp. And wouldn't be surprised if he gets Supercoach relevant again, because he's always been a good, consistent scorer. Never been anything too bad. So yeah, at his price, I mean, not much can go wrong at 545k. So there's not really much here not not really a lot. Sorry, I can't speak there. Not really much that you can risk to lose here. So next up on this list for my last Primo pod, it's gonna be the little man, Caleb Daniel. So the reason why I think Caleb Daniel is a pod, just purely because I've heard good stuff about his preseason, and that the forward line is so bloody shit. If he gets mid-time, it's definitely going to be good, and I could see him doing better than last year. But yeah, towards the end of last year, he got really concerning and didn't do that good. This pick is just a bit out there, just because of how bad the forward line is. He could end up being good and being a good pick, because we saw last year he could push out some 150 plus scores and had a really good streak, but then had a really bad streak. So I don't know. He's an up and down player, Caleb Daniel. He's never really been Supercoach relevant, but you can pick him if you want, whatever, up to you. But I think he's like 2% owned, 1% owned, maybe even. If that's the case, I think you can pick him with the forward line we've got. And of course, as I said earlier, with the Bulldogs fixture, he can do really well. That's actually true. He could do really well with the fixture they've got. So I don't know about Caleb Daniel. He's a 50-50 for mine. I think he's a good pod for his ownership and the fact that he's in the forward line, but definitely don't see him as a super coach relevant player or whatever. But alright, on to the mid prices now, the mid price pods. For my first mid price pod, we've got Taylor Adams. So Taylor Adams now, going into his first season at Sydney, searching for more midfield time after playing basically forward pocket, tiny bit of mid hybrid at Collingwood, and still managed to push out an 80 average. The fact that he's done that, if he plays full mid, I will really like the look of this guy. I mean, we've seen in the past that he's a kind of proven scorer. Look, we've seen him go 110, and then some 90s, 107, 97. So yeah, we know he's a proven scorer. He can score. It's just these injuries that really hold him back. And he's definitely not highly owned, but it's these injuries that hold him back. And I feel like he will have a good year. I feel like he could definitely average 100 plus, but it's just the risk of him getting a hammy injury or whatever, and getting out for like 3 or 4 weeks or something, because that hammy of his is cooked. But if he can go this year, I've heard good things about him in preseason. So if he can go this year without getting injuries, without getting too many injuries, I think this guy will be an insane pick, especially at his price. I think he can move up to like 550k. Taylor Adams. I have high hopes for him. But yeah, just a matter of his injuries, and he does have the bye, so probably not the greatest starting pick, but you could pick him up if he does well later in the season. For my next pod, we have got, for the mid-price pods, Horn Francis. No, I guess Horn Francis doesn't want to exist now. Here he is. So Horn Francis. Look, I'm not sold on this at all. I didn't really rate him last season. I thought it was a bit overrated, but I mean, he did average 77 in his second year. He's showing good signs. He is showing good signs. Um, it was just at one point of the season he got very average, but it doesn't matter. It's his second year, and I feel like entering his third year, he's got the gist of it now. He knows what AFL's like. He can't sook and stuff. I feel like he can average 90 plus, Jason Horne-Francis. Not the most amazing pick, but you can. It's just one that you could potentially start if you hear good things and see good things about his preseason games in round zero. Oh, well, he's not playing round zero, but preseason games. If he does well, you could pick him just because he presents some value. Could go up to maybe 500k if you're lucky. But yeah, definitely not a keeper or whatever. Just someone who I think will do a lot better this year and take the next step in his footballing career. But yeah, I think he's. I can't see. It pisses me off how I can't see the ownership, but he's definitely not highly owned. I think he's like 1% owned, but yeah, not a horrible pick, Jason or Francis, but just something to keep in mind. Next up, we got a midfielder gun who was pretty good apart from the injuries in his first year. As George Wardlaw. I love the way George Wardlaw plays. I think if he can get full midfield time and without injuries, this guy's going to be an absolute superstar. I love the way he plays. He's like a Patrick Dangerfield and Christian Petrarca combined. He can just. Oh, I just love the way he plays. He's fending off people left, right, and centre, crashing through the packs like a bull. He gives off young Paddy Cripps vibes, George Wardlaw. I really like him. I think next year he can really break out. Hasn't got the bad buy as well, so you can definitely think about starting him. But yeah, I have high hopes for Wardlaw. High draft pick, did decently well in his first year last season. I think he can do great next year, George Wardlaw. Next up, who have we got? Buderick. Connor Buderick from Gold Coast. Now, I'm going off purely from what I've heard from other people, but apparently Connor Buderick has got the halfback role at Gold Coast. And if that's the case, Dimmer, I mean, what did he score last year? He played 2 matches, scored a 71 and an 83. So, who knows? Maybe he could be just out of nowhere a primo or something. Well, not a primo, but someone that could really rise up in price and you could upgrade to a better player. I don't know. He's got the bad bias. I don't quite know about starting him. Probably will prefer Chapman or something. But yeah, Buderick's like 2% owned. He's getting a halfback role. Scored a 70 and 80 last year, so decent signs. I'll have to see how he's going in round 0. If he does well there, I might consider picking him. And yeah, I think he'll be alright. But probably will prefer Chapman just because of the buy. I think that's it for the mid prices. Yes, it is. Now, on to the rookies. Oh, actually, maybe I'll do the rookies in a part 2. Yeah, I'm going to do the rookies in a part 2 because this video is starting to go on for a pretty long time and I don't want to bore you guys, so that'll be it for the video today. Oh, well, I've still got to do the team update. I'll show you guys a little bit of the team. So we've got Sicily, Stewart, Young. I think we got Stewart for Dacos just because of Dacos' bad buy. I've become a lot more conservative of the buys. Try to Dacos out, and he's got the Finn McGuinness tag, so I don't know. He'll get tagged a lot more this year, Nick Dacos, and from his history, we can see that he doesn't handle tags that amazing, so I don't know. I haven't got him in my team to start, but we'll see how he goes. Hopefully, he doesn't come back to bite me. Next up, we got Hayden. Sorry about that, my headset just died. But yeah, next up we got Hayden Young. Nothing's changed there. I don't think anything else has really changed in the back line. I think we just got. Who'd we get? No, I don't think anything's changed there. We got Petrarca for merit, just because Petrarca was a lot better last year. And if Oliver doesn't play for the first few rounds, this guy could go bananas. So yeah, he could potentially be a very good pick, Petrarca. So I've got him in my team at M1 and 667. It's a big price to pay, but you know what? For Petrarca, I think it's going to be worth it. I think this year he could average 120 plus for the first time. So yeah, hopefully he can go bang for me this year. Butters, nothing's changed there. Dave Zuniak, nothing's changed there. Sarong, I think I got for someone, but I'm going to trade him back out and get Andy Brayshaw. And my Supercoach is frozen again. I don't know why it's doing this. It's been doing it bloody all day. Just a pain in the ass. There it is. Save team. And then next up we got Walsh. I think I got him for Tom Green. Look, the buy in round 2 isn't ideal, but I think he can go nuts, so I'll probably just hold him. Yeah, I think he'll go nuts against Richmond, so maybe we're going to need that score in our teams. And look, it's not going to kill us to hold him for one round. And if this shit will load there, I've got Jack Steele as another primo midfielder. And when Walsh doesn't play, I could just put Jack Steele in his spot. And I know it's one less primo on the field, but you know what? Jack Steele, I think, in a round can. Oh, well, it's not the fact that Jack Steele. I think a rookie in a round will do good enough to not lose me too many points. But I don't know. I'm just trying to be conservative with my trades and conservative with the buys at the same time. But I'm not going to really get a placeholder for Walsh just because I think that's a bit pointless. If you're going to start him, you might as well just hold him. Jack Steele, yeah, as I said, I think he can get back to his best at the Saints. I probably should have included him in this video as a pod, but I don't really know if he's a pod. I think he's like 12% owned. I don't know if that's a pod. It's just decent ownership. So yeah, Jack Steele, Clay Hall on the bench. Nothing else has really changed that much. I won't go into too much depth in the team. I've got Caleb Winslow just because I've heard good things about his preseason. Traded McRae out for Harms, I think. So yeah, that's basically all I'm going to say for the team. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in my part 2 of the pods, and it'll be rookie pods for 2024. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.